Hey everybody, it's Dave the Red Pill Coach, and I'm back, reporting to you from inside the quarantine zone, with an immunocompromised son living in the house, to teach you guys how to make your life better. And this time I'm going to help you make your relationships work while talking about the coronavirus. How am I going to do that? Because there is good news to report at last. As a coach, my clients are already starting to get restless, as most of us sit at home during these times. And on top of it, horrifyingly, there are no bars to escape to get a drink, no movie theaters, no sports events, no entertainment, no escape. Unfortunately, guys, like I've been telling my clients, I've read just about every good relationship book ever written, but there are none out there that give me any insight on how to handle your wife when you are quarantined with her for at least 2 weeks during a global pandemic. No books have been written on that topic yet, so we're kind of shooting from the hip here. But what we have figured out in several sessions I've had with clients is that the focus is even more so than before on frame. Remember, frame is all. And what is happening in your life right now, stuck at home with your wife and kids, is a battle of the frames. Think about it. She wants to be anxious. She has to be anxious. She wants to be worried about the future. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. We're all going to get thrown on the street. She wants to be crabby, bitchy. And of course, since you're trapped at home with her, she wants to not have sex. Oh yeah, I've heard this story before. In the back of her mind, I think they're looking at this demand that we social distance ourselves, and they're looking at you going, oh, I might get the virus if I touch him. Women's attitude during a time like this is almost always negative and fearful. And frankly, many of them lose their minds completely. What they need, in this time more than any other, is strong, steadfast, masculine leadership. A positive frame that's happy, that knows no matter what happens, we're going to be fine. So what is your frame? Is it positive? Is it upbeat? Is it rational? Is it calm and self-assured? Because that's the frame you want to impose on your family during this time. And I use the term impose deliberately, because they will fight you every step of the way. But this is what you need to do, guys. Certainly listen to her fret and read out the terrifying statistics and the graph that shoots up and all the what ifs and, I don't even have to tell you. I'm sure you guys have all heard it. Don't argue. Sympathize. That's what a leader does. You can reassure her after you listen to her fears. But at the same time, take every opportunity to impose the positive frame in your household. And of course, it's very difficult to stay upbeat during the constant negative news. So, the coach is here to help with some good news for you. I'm going to talk about the good things that are going to happen and that are already happening very rapidly as a result of this global pandemic and the crisis and the reaction to it. And the first thing you have to understand is that our health system was woefully inadequate, was not prepared for a global pandemic, was not prepared for a deadly virus. Absolutely unprepared. And now we're much more prepared. Our healthcare system is going to be more streamlined, it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to be better when all this is through. Because our necessity is the motherhood of invention. So one neat example out of thousands, they've discovered, I haven't seen this on the news, I read an article about it, but it's really a neat thing. The media is not reporting it, but they've basically discovered a workaround to the lack of respirators. Common CPAP machines, millions of them, used around the country by people with sleep apnea. It provides positive pressure with a mask over your face and keeps you from snoring. Well, guess what? All you got to do is hook up an oxygen intake tube, costs about 8 cents, to that machine, and you have a makeshift respirator. And not only do you have a makeshift respirator, you have a respirator that doesn't require intubation. In other words, you don't have to stick a tube all the way down the trachea. You just put the mask over their face, turn on the oxygen, and they live. Now that's pretty cool, considering we have so many of these around the country. And that's just one example of innovation that's occurring all over the field of medicine. Number 2, human trials on the first vaccine just started yesterday. Now, I maintain this vaccine's not going to work, or that if it does work, it will only provide, 10% of immunity, 8% of immunity. But the bigger picture is that we were able to go to stage 1 clinical trials in 6 weeks. And what that means is that instead of taking a year and a half to develop a vaccine, we were able to develop a vaccine in 6 weeks. Now, it's not immediately intuitive why that's so important. But if you can maintain a vaccine, or you can take a vaccine in mid-flu season, we could seriously curtail the flu. So, for example, say flu types 1 and 2 are circulating throughout the population, but they only vaccinated against flu type 1. So Europe's having an epidemic of flu type 2. What do? Well, you're screwed until the next year. But with the new vaccine development process, we could theoretically develop a vaccine in mid-season and vaccinate everybody in Europe against this flu and keep it from spreading around the world. That's what we're looking at, and that's a big deal, guys. This alone could save 20,000 to 60,000 flu deaths every year. It could increase GDP, gross domestic product, by 4% every year. And I think it's important to understand, the pandemic from 1918 never ended. It returns year after year after year and kills 20 to 60,000 people. Every year for the last 100 years, 6 million dead. Every year, 4% of GDP. And we are going to beat not just this coronavirus, but the seasonal influenza, which will add 4% to GDP year after year after year. Third, not only are we going to beat the influenza, we're going to beat the common cold. That's right. This coronavirus vaccine they're developing, actually they're developing about 20 of them, but one of them, once they tweak it, it will work eventually, and it will almost certainly lead very quickly to a universal coronavirus vaccine, which is to say, we would not only defeat the flu, we would also defeat the common cold, increasing GDP by another 2% year after year. You're talking about a 6% increase in GDP, a healthier, a happier population. This is amazing news. Fourth, COVID-19 is reeling from our chemical onslaught already. Chloroquine. Fourth, like I said in the last video, the HIV drugs we have developed will probably kill this thing. And we are seeing this being done more and more because it works. Shocker. And in particular, they have discovered chloroquine, which is an old malaria drug. It's used as a preventative. It's so safe to use. Healthy people take it before they go to Africa to prevent malaria. And millions of people have taken it for the last 80 years. There was just a study published yesterday. It was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. They had 40 patients enrolled, and the patients that received chloroquine were cured. Completely eliminated the virus, eliminated all symptoms, and it cured them within 2 days. And that's just the first drug we've come up with. We're going to come up with a lot more. So this, again, is big news. Fifth, on the macro scale, this is happening in every area of medicine. I talked about that in the first point. But, HIV, AIDS gave us a lot of knowledge about viruses. And this coronavirus is going to give us the knowledge and the impetus to defeat these little bastards once and for all. Again, if we do that, it means no more sickness. It means 6% of GDP goes up year after year after year because we have a healthy population. And frankly, it probably means 1,000 years of economic expansion once we accomplish this, and we will accomplish this in 3 to 5 years. Sixth, Another medical innovation is coming to the forefront: telemedicine. And we've been pushing for this for 10 years, and everybody's pretty much ignored it. But now, because of the contagiousness of this virus, telemedicine is on the rise. And I had a plan. Folks, we can't afford Medicare for all. We just can't afford it. It's too expensive. We can't provide free health care to everybody in the country. It's too expensive. But what we could do, we could provide telemedicine for all. You could use it. It's cheap. You use a bank of technicians to answer most questions. And if they have a problem, then they transfer it to the nurse. And if the nurse has a problem, he or she transfers it to the doctor. You could handle many, many high volumes of calls with this method. You could call in tests and tell them where to go to get their test taken, all without even seeing the physician, and all for a fraction of the cost that we're spending on healthcare now. And as a bonus, if we can keep people out of doctors' offices, we can reduce infection substantially. Get this, I'll bet you didn't know this, but 90,000 Americans die every year from what's called iatrogenic infections, hospital and doctor-caused infections. Where do you go when you're sick? That doctor's office. So the sick guy sits in a chair, coughs all over the place, and then you go into the doctor's office and you get exposed. Telemedicine prevents that. It's cheaper, and it's at least, it's probably not as effective as in-person medicine, but it has a lot of advantages, and it's going to result in a lot fewer deaths and infections. And this never would have happened if we had not had this international crisis. So again, the rise of telemedicine is a great thing. Seventh, as I've said before, this is not the zombie virus. But now, folks, we are ready, or at least we're more ready for the zombie virus. So when, not if, when the 40% kill rate virus spreads like wildfire through the human race, well, if that had happened before now, if that had been the first pandemic that we noticed, we would have been well and truly screwed. But we're not well and truly screwed. We are in good shape, and that's important. Eighth, and finally on my list, I could go on for a while, but eighth, the public-private partnership model that is being developed will take us a good many places in the future. In the past, we've had a public model. Only the government can do something. But if you really want to accomplish great things, you must have a public-private partnership. If you want to go to the moon, if you want to colonize Mars, or if you want to defeat the coronavirus, you need to do the same thing. You need a public-private partnership, all working towards the same goal. And I want to leave you with this, because of this bug, because of this COVID-19, we are able to do many things that we didn't imagine that we could do just a short time ago. And it's because humans function best when we are working as a group against an outside threat, a common enemy. And for once, for the first time in a century, the common enemy is not the Japs, it's not the Jerrys, it's not even the Chinks. Despite the best efforts of the media to stir up dissension, this is not the fault of the Chinese people. And for once, for the first time in over 100 years, human beings have a common enemy. And we do not need to be dehumanized. And we don't need to dehumanize our enemy in order to be convinced to kill it. So this progress, all taken together, is really a boatload. I have a PhD in medical sociology, and we've talked about many of these issues. How can we do this and make the population healthier? People won't do telemedicine. People won't stay out of doctor's offices if they have a cold or the flu. How do we change behavior? Well, we figured out how to change behavior, and much of it is for the better. So take heart, fellow travelers. Understand that this will pass, that we will be stronger, we will be healthier, we will be richer because of it. And understand, on that note, the markets will rebound. They will rebound almost immediately within a week or two after this is over. And the secret in the meantime is to be strong and to impose your positive and upbeat frame on your family and to lead them to a better place. I hope some of this information was helpful to you in accomplishing that. And thank you very much.